Tonight the discourse is going to be on the Satipatthana Sutta, the foundations of mindfulness. Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living in the Kuru country, where there was a town of the Kurus named Kasasadama. There he addressed the monks thus. Monks, Venerable Sir, they replied, the Blessed One said this. Monks, this is a direct path for the purification of beings, for the attainment of the true way, for the realization of Nibbana. Namely, the four foundations of mindfulness. What are the four? Here, monks, a monk abides observing the body as a body, ardent, fully aware, and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. Now, for those that have practiced Vipassana, the four foundations of mindfulness are a lot different than what you think it is. And I'll explain that as we go along. So the first part is mindfulness of breathing. And how, monks, does a monk abide contemplating, observing? I don't like the word contemplating because it means thinking. But observing is a better word. The body as a body. Here a monk gone to the forest or to the root of a tree or an empty hut sits down, having folded his legs crosswise and set his body erect, and establishes mindfulness in front of him. Ever mindful, he breathes in, mindful, he breathes out. Breathing in long, he understands I breathe in long. Or, breathing out long, he understands I breathe out long. Breathing in short, he understands I breathe in short. Or breathing out short, he understands I breathe out short. In this description, did you hear me say nose, nostril tip, or abdomen? Did you?
No.
Why?
It's not there.
It's not there. It doesn't tell you to specifically put your attention on any place in your body. It's just that you know when you take a long breath and you know when you take a short breath. The key word to this is he understands. You understand when you're taking a long breath, you understand when you're taking a short breath. You understand when it's fine, the breath is fine, you understand when it's coarse. Now we get to the actual instructions. He trains thus. This means now you're doing the instructions the way he's telling you. I shall breathe in, experiencing the whole body. He trains thus. I shall breathe out, experiencing the whole body. He trains thus. I shall breathe in, tranquilizing the bodily formation. He trains thus. I shall breathe out, tranquilizing the bodily formation. Now, this is key, because it says on the in-breath, you tranquilize a bodily formation. On the out-breath, you tranquilize a bodily formation. That is something that you never hear at a Vipassana retreat. What is it talking about? It's talking about your entire body, not as we think of in the West, from the neck down is your body and from the neck up is your mind. This is talking about from the top of your head all the way down to the bottom of your feet. And this is where you start to be able to recognize that tension and tightness arising in your brain. The meninges is a membrane that goes around your brain. Anytime there's a thought, anytime there's a feeling, anytime there's a sensation, it contracts, gets tight. And you can feel that. You have to intentionally look for it to be able to see it. And the way you tranquilize it, by relaxing. So on the in-breath, you relax. On the out-breath, you relax. There's a distraction, your tension's pulled away, you recognize it, you release that distraction. The content of your thoughts is not important. The process is the thing that's important. So you let the distraction be there by itself. And then you relax the tightness caused by that distraction. You can feel that. Open up and relax. Now that's half of right effort. The other half of right effort is bringing up something wholesome. What is wholesome? Smiling. And your object of meditation. And staying with your object of meditation for as long as you can. And that's what the 6 R's are. Okay? Every time you do that, there is a brief moment of relief because you've let go of craving. So this is immediately effective because you let go of the unwholesome mind and you're developing the wholesome mind. When you let go, you can be able to recognize that your mind is clear, there are no thoughts, there are no distractions. Your mind is very alert and bright, and you bring that mind back to your wholesome object, smiling, and your object of meditation. For most of you, that means loving kindness or one of the Brahma Viharas. Now, the translators of this book were very strongly influenced by some commentaries. And they use some of the commentarial things, they just added it into some of the suttas, which eventually will be taken out, I promise. In this way, he abides observing the body as a body internally, externally, and both internally and externally. This is commentary. And then the translators start saying, or he does something else, or he does something else, or he does something else. And I take out the or. He observes in the body its nature of arising. He abides observing in the body the nature of vanishing. He abides observing the body its nature of arising and vanishing. So you see how the process works. It arises, it's there for a little while and disappears. And that's what this is talking about. Then there's a sentence in here that is really taken from the commentaries, and it doesn't have anything to do with what we need right now. He abides independent, not craving or clinging to anything in the world. That is how a monk abides, contemplating the body as a body. So, the instructions in the mindfulness of breathing is 4 sentences. But almost everybody that is teaching meditation only uses 3 of those sentences. They forget the last sentence, which is the most important part of the practice, and that is relaxing on the in-breath and relaxing on the out-breath. So, the instructions in the suttas have been changed a little bit, and commentarial things have been put in its place. And that is the thing that has caused the most confusion with people that are practicing meditation. And there are some people that are very adamant about using commentaries instead of the original teachings. And the commentary that's most used is called the Visuddhimagga. I know there's a monk in Burma who, excuse me, I have to sneeze, maybe? Or maybe not. Yeah. He has memorized the entire Visuddhimagga, and he follows the instructions in the Visuddhimagga very, very closely. And he's become quite a popular monk. The problem with the Visuddhimagga is that it was written 1,000 years after the Buddha died. And the author, who is named by the name of Buddhaghosa, Venerable Buddhaghosa, was trying to take 4 different sects of Buddhism and bring it all together. Now, he was quite a scholar, and Buddhaghosa, before he became a Buddhist monk, was a Veda scholar. He understood the Brahman Vedas, and he didn't know anything about meditation. And when he became a monk, he went to one of the universities in southern India, and he started studying Pali, and he thought he was getting very good at that. And he started thinking that he knew Pali better than his Pali teacher. And the Pali teacher read his mind and said, no, that's not good. Now you have to pay a penance for this. So the teacher told him, you have to go to Sri Lanka, where they've written many, many commentaries, but they've written them in Sri Lankan, and you have to change them back into Pali. So when he came to Sri Lanka, the first book he wrote was the Visuddhimagga. The first part of the Visuddhimagga is actually pretty good, and it's on the morality. It's on Chela. And there's a lot of things for monks that can learn a lot from that. The second part of the book is on concentration. And because he didn't know anything about the Buddha's teaching of meditation, he started thinking, well, meditation is meditation, right? It's all the same. I don't know what the Buddha taught, but I do know what the Vedas say. So he started taking the instructions from the Vedas and he used some Buddhist terms. And he started writing about this. And there's one section in there that's called access or neighborhood concentration. In Pali, it's called Bechara Samadhi. Bechara Samadhi is not ever mentioned in the suttas. And when you get to Bechara Samadhi, the force of the concentration that they were practicing, which is absorption kind of concentration, one-pointed concentration, the force of the concentration would suppress the hindrances. And then the next part of the instructions talks about full absorption concentration, getting into jhana. And they call that Apana Samadhi. And he said, when you first start and you get beyond the Bechara Samadhi, the access concentration, you have a sign arise in your mind. And this sign is like a round silver thing in your mind. And it's kind of like looking at the moon. It's bright and shiny. And he called that a nimitta. The nimitta in Pali means sign. That's all it means. It's a sign. The word nimitta is in the suttas, but it's not talking about a sign in the same way. And you're supposed to be able to do all kinds of neat stuff with this sign. You can make it big, you can make it small, you can do all kinds of things with it. But the problem with that is, he says, you take that as your object of meditation, and you don't pay attention to the breathing anymore. You still have the breath. And it's still there, and you can kind of notice it, but you're just supposed to focus on this sign. And when you get to the fourth jhana, your concentration is so good and it's so strong, they say that you no longer can see the breath at all. You don't breathe through your lungs anymore. And I know quite a few teachers that are teaching this, but it doesn't agree with the suttas. Not at all. With mindfulness of breathing, you can stay seeing the breath up to the realm, or up to and through the realm of nothingness. But when you get to the state of neither perception nor non-perception, you're not able to see the breath anymore. Now, this one-pointed concentration, because it suppresses the hindrances, takes you off of the path that the Buddha taught. And the end result is only going as high as neither perception nor non-perception with absorption concentration. You can't ever attain Nibbana. Now, when the Buddha was a bodhisattva and he was wanting to learn about meditation, he went to a couple different meditation teachers. And his first meditation teacher, he got to the realm of nothingness. And he went to the teacher because he knew there was still more to do. And he said, "Is there any more?" And the teacher said, no, this is as high as you get. And the teacher offered him to teach along with the teacher. And he declined, and he was very much disappointed. So he found another meditation teacher, and before he even started, he said, where does this meditation take you? And this man said, well, it takes you to the realm of neither perception nor non-perception. So he did it. And he got to that realm. And he went to the teacher and he said, there's still stuff there. There's still something there. This isn't quite right. Is there anything that's going to take me to Nibbana? And he said, Nibbana, that doesn't mean anything to me. This is as high as any human being can experience practicing absorption concentration. So the teacher said he was willing to step down and let the Buddha teach that for everyone. And the Buddha declined, and he went off on his own. Absorption concentration, even people that are practicing Vipassana will tell you that the jhana cannot take you to Nibbana. But it's the absorption jhana that they're talking about. The next part of the Visuddhimagga is, quote, Vipassana. Vipassana, what does it mean? Insight. Right? Well, and the way that he presents it, it sounds like you can do Vipassana just by itself, or you can do the jhanas and then add the Vipassana later. But that does not lead to Nibbana. That does not agree with what the suttas say. There's a sutta in here, it's page 149, it's section 10 if you want to look it up. It says that samatha, or serenity or tranquility, and vipassana are yoked together. They have to be equally pulling. And every time, if you go to the index, just about every time you look up samatha, and then you look up insight, and you compare the pages that they're on the same page. They're mentioned together many, many, many times. So, the commentaries, they talk about 9 different kinds of insight knowledge. And in the 40s, Mahasi Sayadaw wrote a sub-commentary of the Visuddhimagga, and he made 16 insight knowledges. And that's what's currently been taught today. The insight knowledges that they're talking about are not mentioned in the suttas in the way that they call them insights with Vipassana. As I said, I've practiced this for 20 years. I've gone through the insight knowledges. I understand them very well. They do not lead to Nibbana. What they call Nibbana and what Mahasi Sayadaw calls Nibbana is you get to Sankaru Pekka, that's equanimity to formations, and then you will see, right at the end of that state, you will see anicca, impermanence, arise and pass away 3 or 4 times very quickly, and then you have a blackout. Or you will see dukkha 3 or 4 times very quickly, and then you have a blackout. Or you will see anatta 3 or 4 times very quickly, and then you have a blackout. And when that blackout fades away, then you will see all of the insight knowledges exactly the way they happen, starting from the second insight knowledge all the way to the end of it. And it happens that way. But there's some problems with this, because that doesn't agree with the suttas. There is, and I didn't bring it with me, and I wish I would have, there is a sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya that it says very, very plainly that if you do not see and understand the links of dependent origination, you will never be able to attain Nibbana. It's not talking about anicca, dukkha, anatta so much. It's talking about seeing the links of dependent origination. And further down, it goes through all of the links of dependent origination, and it says, when you see and understand this, that is the way you attain Nibbana. And in the Mahavagga, it says you can see one or all of the three characteristics I just mentioned, anicca, dukkha, anatta, without ever seeing the links of dependent origination. But when you see the links of dependent origination, you see all of those links in each link. You see how it arises. You see that because it arises, it's a form of suffering because it's a disturbance. And you see that it's not self. It's not you. It is anatta. So, the instructions that are given in Vipassana don't work very well, because it is a commentary and a sub-commentary that it comes from. And the sub-commentary, it adds on a little bit, and it says, well, we also have this idea of momentary concentration. Khanika Samadhi, moment-to-moment awareness. Now the problem with the Vipassana is that it does not show you how to let go of craving. So you keep bringing craving back to your object of meditation. And this is why the absorption concentration and the straight Vipassana don't work very well. Now they've made up this thing, well, yeah, this is what the experience is. I'm going to see anicca, dukkha, or anatta, and then I'm going to attain Nibbana. I left Burma very disappointed after a 2-year retreat because it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like I went deep enough, or I didn't have the relief that I was told that Nibbana was. So I went back to Malaysia, and the people in Malaysia had sponsored my plane trip to Burma. So I came back to Malaysia, and they wanted me to teach meditation because they knew I'd been gone so long, and they had heard that I was successful. And I couldn't, in my right mind, I couldn't convince myself to teach Vipassana meditation. I just couldn't do it because I didn't feel it was the right thing. So instead of that, I started teaching loving kindness meditation. And after a couple of years, I was invited to go to the biggest monastery in Kuala Lumpur that was Theravadan. It's a Sri Lankan monastery. And to teach the meditation, the loving kindness meditation there. And while I was there, there was a monk that came to visit by the name of Punaji. And Punaji found out that I was teaching meditation. He said, well, how are you teaching it? What are you doing? So I started giving him the instructions of how to do the meditation. And he stopped me about halfway through and he said, it sounds like you're teaching it correctly, but you're using the language of the commentaries. Why don't you put the commentaries down and go to the suttas and use sutta language? So that's what I did. And somebody had just given me a copy of the Middle Link Sayings. So I was rather enthusiastic about it, because always before, when I picked up the suttas, I would try to read it and I couldn't understand it, because I had studied so many years the Visuddhimagga, and it didn't match. And I always kept going back to the Visuddhimagga. So when this monk told me to put the Visuddhimagga down, now I started reading it and I could understand it. And it was pretty remarkable. No, I was still teaching loving kindness meditation, but I used this one extra step of relax. And when I would give a retreat, I would start reading the suttas to these people, and their progress in the meditation was so fast, it was phenomenal. Now, before I started doing this, in Thailand, they said, if you want to get into a jhana, it's going to take you 15 years. If you want to get into a jhana more quickly, go to Sri Lanka. It only takes 10 years. And that was what I thought. And I was also reading commentarial books on the Brahma Vihara, where it says that you get to the third jhana with loving kindness, you get to the third jhana with compassion, you get to the third jhana with joy, you get to the fourth jhana with equanimity. In the first retreat that I started reading the suttas, I had 4 people that had gotten as far as the second jhana. And I started going, whoa, this is really something. This is something that's supposed to take 10 years if you're fast. But they were all teaching one-pointed kinds of concentration, and it can take a while to get that and develop it. So as I started letting go of the ideas that I had with the commentaries and started reading the suttas, I changed some of the ways that I was teaching, because it didn't agree with what the suttas were saying. And when I first started teaching loving kindness meditation, the first retreat I gave was for 60 people. And they were so happy with it and so enthusiastic that they went around telling everybody else about it. But what I was telling people to do, instead of relax, which is a very precise word to use, I said, soften your mind. Make it softer. Which it worked pretty well, but when I came up with the word relax after reading the Anapanasati Sutta, that changed my whole view of what the Buddha was talking about. I was giving a retreat. This is while I was just first starting to read. And I was walking to give a Dhamma talk. And I started really thinking deeply about the tranquilizing the bodily formation. What does that mean exactly? And one thing that had always troubled me with Vipassana was I had great concentration. I mean, to walk the length of this building, doing the slow walking that they recommended would take me 45 minutes, just one direction. And I was seeing the arising and passing away of all kinds of different things, and I was seeing the intention as it was arising. I was going through all of that. But one of the problems I had with that was I got this terrific headache. So I went to the teacher and I said, the meditation is no problem, but I got this headache and it doesn't seem right. And the instructions I was given was, ignore it, it's nothing. So the meditation teacher told me to ignore craving, but he didn't recognize that that's what he was saying. So as I was walking to give the Dhamma talk, I started thinking, there's this tightness in my head. I wonder what happens if I let that go and relax. And it was such a profound experience, I stopped walking. Because when I let go of that tightness in my head, my mind was clear. There was no thoughts in it. My mind was very bright and alert. So I thought, there's something to this. So after I gave the retreat, I didn't tell anybody about it, but after I gave the retreat, I started sitting and following the directions that I just read to you. On the in-breath, you relax. On the out-breath, you relax. I went deeper, faster than I'd ever gone before. Now this is with, quote, being successful with all the insight knowledges. And I was deeper than that. So I thought, this is pretty amazing. So I went to the head monk and I got permission to take 2 weeks, and I wanted to go into Thailand because I knew where there was a great cave and do the meditation there. And this cave, it was real high. It was maybe 20 feet high, and it went out over, so it was quite open and a lot of light and that sort of thing. And I would get up in the morning, I would do my alms round and eat, and then I would study. And then after 12 o'clock, then I would sit in meditation until 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock at night. And it was so interesting using that relaxed step that after 2 weeks I couldn't stop. And I just kept going, and I kept going, and I kept seeing all of these things that's talked about in the suttas. Well, that was a very nice confirmation that I was on the right path. After 3 months, the teacher in Malaysia got another monk to come get me so I could go back. And then I started teaching more and more what I'm showing you right now. Now we get into the four postures, and I've always loved this, and I'll explain why in a minute. Again, monks, when walking, a monk understands I am walking. When standing, he understands I am standing. When sitting, he understands I'm sitting. When lying down, he understands I'm lying down. When I was practicing Vipassana and doing the walking meditation, they told me I had to do this part of the practice. And I would get to the end of the walk, and I stood there, and I said to myself 10 or 15 times, standing, 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 like I didn't know that I was standing. Or sitting, 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 or lying down, or walking, whatever it happened to be. But when I got the book and I started looking at it, it says he understands. Do you understand when you're standing and when you're not? Do you understand when you're sitting down? That's all it means. You know what your posture is. So I was kind of relieved to see that, so you didn't have to note something as dumb as, like, I don't know whether I'm sitting or not. I better check it out. Now, we get to full awareness. Again, monks, a monk is one who acts in full awareness when going forward and returning. Who acts in full awareness when looking ahead and looking away. Who acts in full awareness when flexing and extending his limbs. Who acts in full awareness when wearing his robes and carrying his outer robe and bowl. Who acts in full awareness when eating, drinking, consuming food and tasting. Who acts in full awareness when defecating and urinating. Who acts in full awareness when standing, walking, sitting, falling asleep, waking up, talking, and keeping silent. Full awareness of what? It's full awareness of mind when you're doing these activities. Full awareness means being aware of when there's tension and tightness in your head and when there's not, while you're doing activities. That's one of the reasons that I want you to keep your meditation going during your daily activities. So you can watch what mind is doing and let go of nonsense thoughts, and you can let go of distracting thoughts and be with what you're doing while you're doing it. And smile. Okay, now, monks, if anyone should develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness in such a way for 7 years, one of 2 fruits can be expected for him. Either final knowledge here and now, becoming an arahant, or if there is a trace of craving and clinging left, they would become a non-returner. That means an anagami. Let alone 7 years, monks. If anyone should develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness in such a way for 6 years, 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. One of 2 fruits can be expected for him. Either final knowledge here and now, or if there's a trace of craving and clinging left, non-return. Let alone 1 year. If anyone should develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness in such a way for 7 months, 6 months, 5 months, 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, a half a month. One of 2 fruits can be expected for him, either final knowledge here and now, or if there's a trace of craving and clinging left, non-return. Let alone a half a month. if anyone should develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness in such a way for 7 days. How long is this retreat? One of 2 fruits can be expected for him, either final knowledge here and now, or if there's a trace of craving and clinging left, none return. So it was with reference to this that it was said, monks, this is a direct path for the purification of beings, for the surmounting of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and grief, for the attainment of the true way, for the realization of Nibbana, namely the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words.
Thank you.
Not bad. I used to take 2 days doing it. So, got a question? Yeah.
What's the difference between collectedness and equanimity?
Collectedness is a composed mind that's very still. Equanimity is a mind that has extreme balance in it. Okay? Now, what's going to happen as you keep going deeper and deeper in your practice, you're going to get to a place where you are going to experience the word just went out of my mind. No, but you know the word. Oh, the disenchantment. That's what it was. What is disenchanted? It means that the things that were real special to you and really meant a lot, now they're not so special anymore. Now you're just seeing things as they are, and they're all pretty much equal. And then your mind will start to go deeper, and you will experience dispassion. Dispassion is the highest degree of equanimity that you can experience. You look over here and you see this, you look over here and you see that. There's really no difference. It's just sight, color and form coming in, hitting the eye consciousness arises. The meeting of the 3 is called eye contact. With eye contact as condition, eye feeling arises. With eye feeling, when eye feeling arises, eye craving arises. Then, what happens after that is the clinging, the habitual tendency, the birth of action, and the suffering. So when you see all of that with dispassion, you'll be able to see the different links, and you'll be able to 6R. And that's how you get to an unconditioned state. Because every link of the dependent origination is a condition for the next link. And when that link doesn't arise, then there's no other condition. And that's Nibbana. It's such a big wow that when you come out of that state, your understanding changes. And you start to see things in a more balanced, unemotional state. You can still have emotions arise, but you're not attached to them. There's not a lot of personality change that happens at first. Over a period of time, after you've had the fruition The first thing you experience is the path knowledge. The next thing you will experience is the fruition knowledge. Once you have the fruition, it starts to get set. And over a period of time, you'll start noticing changes in the way you look at things. And how you used to get caught up in something really a lot, and it would take days and weeks and months to straighten it out, and now it's not quite so bad. It gets easier as time goes by. And your mind, you sit in meditation, your mind can go right into equanimity and then neither perception nor non-perception pretty easily. So there's a lot of advantages of not working too hard, but working hard enough. Being balanced with your energy, with your effort, with all of your links of the awakening factor.